Welcome to my review video for Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Let's jump into it. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. I've been waiting for this one for quite a while. As a big fan of dragons, hopefully I've been able to show that over the past few videos. I really love to incorporate dragons into my campaigns, and I'm very impressed that TSR really put out some of the dragon campaigns early on. Dragons of Icespire Peak, Rise of Tiamat. Dragons, in my mind, are one of the quintessential must-haves for Dungeons & Dragons. Now, whenever I get a new module or book or any type of publication, I really go about looking at them and digesting them in kind of 3 steps. The first one is looking at the artwork. Maybe it's just the creative side of me, but the first thing I want to do is absorb all the artwork. The second part is really looking at the contents of the book and how it really utilizes the content to enhance or augment your gaming experience. And then the third one is usability. How usable is the material for what you're wanting to do in your games? So I'm going to be looking at the book in those directions and really just reviewing it from those 3 aspects. Now, for the artwork, I have to say overall very, very good. There are a lot of different images throughout the book. Some are just kind of sketches, others are fully realized bits of art, and overall I thought it was really good. Now there was definitely some variance. Some of the illustrations are a little more cartoony or anime-esque. Some of them are painted more with realism, so there's a little bit of disconnect and it can be a little kind of offsetting for me personally, just my opinion. I like when the overall art style is consistent throughout the book. So an example is Rime of the Frost Maiden. All of the artwork is very realism and it really has a good solid flow to it. And while not over distracting, it's not anything that's, really putting over cartoony with realism. There definitely is various artists who have worked on this book and brought their own styles to it. Nothing that really breaks it, but I would have just liked to have seen a little bit more consistency through all the art. But with that being said, the art, as you'll see in some of my screen captures here, is absolutely stunning and gorgeous and should be really inspiring for you to kind of visualize dragons in your games. Now, after discussing the artwork, let's talk about the contents. After a really kind of interesting and inspiring foreword, the book does not take even a breath. It starts diving right in to the contents and really looking at dragons in the game. And overall, I thought it was fantastic that there was a great focus on dragons. Of course, as we've talked about in my earlier videos, dragons are something that I feel get really lost in so many wonderful games and campaigns, that to see such focus put on them in just a complete deep dive into each type of dragon as well as introducing new dragons, I thought was great. But it really starts out looking at the aspects of Dragonborn and how player characters can utilize the kind of dragon-esque elements of the game in their Dragonborn characters. Before we dive into that, one little hint, it does mention Greyhawk. As an old school player, for me that's a huge hint at possibilities to come. Now, if you're a player and looking at augmenting your Dragonborn race, this book doesn't have a whole lot of Dragonborn new features, new race features. So if you're a player looking at augmenting your Dragonborn, I would not recommend getting this book just for that reason. There just isn't a whole lot. Now, if you and your playing group go together on books and your DM can utilize dragon-esque bits in their games, then this is a great purchase. But otherwise, for the players themselves, I don't think this is a must-have, and really caution players from getting this if they're just interested in augmenting their Dragonborn race. Now for the GMs, it jumps right into dragons utilizing magic and has quite a bit of opportunity to bring in some dragon-specific magic into your campaign. This is, I thought, really kind of a cool way to do it, because there should be some things that dragons, especially when you're looking at ancient dragons or even adult dragons, could have some magic that is not known to even long-lived races like elves. I think it's pretty cool, a neat way to be able to integrate new magic into your game. After the magic, it really starts going into some of the magic items, and again, just some things that are focused specifically on dragon lore and opportunities to bring these into your world focused on a dragon. Again, I think this is a great piece. I utilize a lot of specific magic items in my games that play right into the campaign threads, the story threads, as well as the player characters. So if you are going to feature dragons, why not have items that are going to focus on those dragons? I think the layout here is pretty good to start driving ideas. Now, the real meat in the book gets into, like I said, DM territory. Talking about how you can utilize dragons in play, gives a lot of ideas on integrating different dragon personalities and variant dragon personalities into your game. How to role play them, how to set up locations that are dragon specific, and some of the things that we did talk about in our video, how to introduce them, how to make them part of the local lore that have been around for quite a while. Again, my big takeaway on this one here is this is specifically a fantastic tool for DMs who want to utilize dragons more in their stories, in their games. This really goes hand in hand with kind of how this is laid out and really diving into the dragon aspect of Dungeons and Dragons. How to make them a bigger part, how to utilize them in game, how to have them be interesting and different creatures for your party to interact with. I thought it was great. Now, of course, a lot of this material goes in looking at the dragons, how to utilize them in games, what their motivations are, and it breaks them down by type of dragon as well as age of dragon. So it just reinforces, again, those kind of 4 tiers of dragon life, from wormling to young to adult to ancient, and it kind of, in my mind, was really interesting. If you follow, for instance, we're showing the blue dragon, but if you follow their tables and look at them from the wormling all the way up to ancient, you can see how there are threads that are similar but grow and develop over the dragon's life. So again, great way to bring in some aspects of not only, just giving good ideas and influence to how to utilize dragons in your game, but also keeping it consistent by dragon type. Again, I thought this was a great technique and tool. This is how I kind of look at dragons, and I thought it worked really well. Now, the book does go into a lot of dragon-esque or dragon-focused adventures, everything on how to make them a kind of mysterious part of one-shots, all the way up to how to center your campaign completely around dragons. As mentioned in the earlier videos, this is something that, again, I really utilize quite a bit, so it was great to see it called out there with great tips and hints and ideas on how GMs who may not utilize dragons very much, it gives a good opportunity to start thinking about how to incorporate them with good ideas, good opportunities to look at some of the ways they've been used in the past, as well as new and different ways that could be used in the future. So I thought it was a really great addition into how to make your adventures focused on dragons, or have dragons be central to your story and your adventures. Again, I thought this was fantastic because it's something that I do a lot, and I think more people should do as well. Now, I do want to touch again on the art. I want to just make sure that I call out how beautiful this book is illustrated. Even though I thought there were some variances in the type of art, this image here alone is fantastic. One of my favorites out of the book. Now, of course, once you have a dragon all designed out and you know how you want to incorporate it in your game, the Hordes and Layers is a fantastic section because it really allows you to base your dragon in your game world. So it talks a lot about the types of hordes that dragons could collect, which I actually came up with a couple of takeaways that I thought were really interesting and unique that I hadn't thought of before. So really good information, fantastic ideas, and again, it really drives home some of the aspects of putting dragons more central to your story and thinking of them as more fully fleshed out possibilities in your game. And of course, for all those hordes and items, there are tables, plenty of tables. You can randomize things or even just go through and look for things that are most important and impactful for your story and your game. But plenty of ideas and information and opportunity. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time thinking and coming up with things and trying to get it to fit. Plenty of opportunity to pull items right off of tables. And it even goes through and shows different layer ideas and has example layers for each of the types of dragons, which I thought was great because, again, it can be very inspiring. It can give you an idea on how to just put something down to build your game around. So you don't have to spend a whole ton of time just with the complete crafting top to bottom. Well, that's something that I really love to do. If it's something where you're strapped for time or looking for inspiration, there's some great tools by dragon type for their types of layers and the kind of immediate environment their layers can be found in. Again, a great tool, especially if you're newer to GMing on dragons. And of course, it does have a bestiary, which goes in kind of two directions. The first one is different types of dragons. And I've seen plenty of these in older dragon magazines, and so there were many that I kind of expected to see. It really kept true to the lore that I had been using from back in the day, so no real big different surprises. On some of these dragons, they're not very well known, I think, to the community, so it was great to see him put these dragons in there. And I'm hoping to see more dragons of these types being used. Not only that, but in addition, I think there's an opportunity for everybody to check out some of these dragons that aren't super well known and maybe even create some of their own. I think the possibilities for what dragons can be and what they can become is just as much as we want. So again, great to see some of the sources used. Also interesting to see some of the ones that are kind of new and unique. And overall, I think the variant dragons are just really a great touch to bring more people into the loop on the possibilities of what dragons can be. While some of the dragons have been mentioned before in some of the lore, like Dragon Magazine, I think there's quite a bit more fleshing out here that kind of gets the different styles of dragons more in line with the other dragon types, and little bits that really talk about why they are a little more lesser known or not seen as much. So I thought it was really good. Some cool lore. And of course it goes into other types of dragons like dragon turtles and sea serpents, which I thought was really cool. There are a lot of different creatures that are listed in here too that can be utilized to bring that dragon-esque sense and kind of wonder and feeling into a game without it actually being a dragon. So if you're looking at kind of hints of dragons, there are quite a few different types of dragon-esque creatures that you can introduce that are really cool and unique and different and give that kind of sense of dragon. Additionally, there are a lot of dragon-born NPCs that you can introduce in your game, different archetypes, and overall a whole lot of different ways to bring, again, that dragon-esque feeling into your game, which, again, I thought was really good because if you don't want to have a full-fledged dragon in your game, these types of creatures in the bestiary are great just to start bringing that element in. So overall, for Fizbans, I think it's a great book for GMs who are looking at adding more to their games and game worlds, focusing on dragons. I think it is a good-to-have tool for bringing your game to a newer level with more details and more opportunity to bring that fantasy piece into the world. I definitely recommend it if you have the funds and opportunity. However, it's not as important as just making sure you have and utilize your Dungeon Master's Guide. Hope this video is helpful. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below.